It must be hot. My Mars bars turn to mush. The smell of melting tarmac in the late night hush. Bread in the packet has already turned to toast. My neighbour's pet chicken is now a Sunday roast. But I don't like to boast, because I've got Brandon, Brandon, basking on my bed in his boxers. The two of us pining for something fresh. Well, other than the obvious. The cool wash of contentment, the searing freeze of truth. Or perhaps just a vanilla ice cream. So we're making our way through this seaside town now, me and Brandon. He's promised something long and hot and sticky the moment we get back. Great! It's been years since I had a kebab. Past shop-clad shutters and graffiti denouncing Tracy as a slag. To the neon buzz moth hub of the prom, tiddly-om, pom. Last night in bed he said, "It isn't very long, tiddly-om, pom, and it's very limp." And I said, well, it's seen a lot of tourists over the years, and it's prone to erosion and longshore drift. And last summer, half of it was swept away by a giant squid. The rash on the side of my neck is caused by Brandon's stubble as it scrapes, sandpaper, scrape, when he gets distracted by the cricket results. So we're walking along next to the beach, and his face is lit up like that of a cartoon ferret on a box of cheap own-brand Rice Krispie knockoffs, the spoon filled with ricey goodness hovering inches from his cavernous gob. And the late-night salt air sea breeze caresses our manly frames, imbuing in us all kinds of nautical hijinks, naval seriousness, merry little frigates, dolphin blowholes, whales both humpback and sperm, first-mate officers, salty sea dogs, able-bodied seamen, bow thrusters, butt blocks in the rigging, man the heads, bottle-nosed lumpsuckers, and chub. Do you see the ice cream van? Do you see the ice cream van? An oblong of light spilled out onto the sand-flecked concrete, its refrigeration generator throbbing the air with a sudden intensity. Chugga, 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 chugga. Do you see it throbbing away there? Chugga, 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 chugga. Window stickers advertising all kinds of things to lick and nibble and crunch down on, smooth and ever so creamy. The moon beams on down like someone from Dorset. In the glow of its madness we dance. Oh, Brandon, I want to do things to certain bits of you for most of the night, though I'm conscious you've got an early shift at the Lady Remington Smooth and Silky cordless rechargeable hair removal system factory. And the ice cream man, did I mention he's also a magician? He waves his magic wand at us and poof! All is gone. The ice cream man is gone. The ice cream van is gone. The neon and the stars are gone. And Brandon is gone. It's just me on the prom, on a sultry night in a sleepy coastal town. And the kebab shop is closed. And the rash on the side of my neck is just a fungal infection. And Tracy is still a slag, apparently. And I walk sadly home. I walk sadly home. Hello, my name is Robert Garnham, and thank you so much for coming along to Yay, the Search for Happiness. Or as my director wanted to call it, Yay, the Search for an Audience. Yes, here I am. I'm an actual real poet. Thank you so much for not being put off by the word poetry. To be honest, poetry's the perfect career choice for me, probably because of my crippling fear of success. Mind you, at school, it's a wonder I ever got into poetry. Culture wasn't a very big thing at my school. In fact, the school motto was Si Momentum Pumpus Maximus, which roughly translates as, if it moves, hump it. But here I am, an actual poet, an actual real poet. And I tell you, it's the perfect career choice for me, probably because of my crippling fear of success. But I'm a happy person, and I was a happy kid. I loved comedy, and I loved practical jokes. As a really subtle joke, I used to go into my local newsagents and ask if the psychic news had come in yet. And back in those days, of course, the local library had all of the telephone directories. And I'd go in with all my friends and we'd flick through looking for people with funny names, and then we'd call them up. Hello, are you a pigeon? Well, why don't you stop crapping on my mum's car? Hello, are you Mr. Giraffe? Just thought I'd stick my neck out and say hello. And one day we called this chap, and I said, hello, are you Mr. Duck? And before I could get any further, he said, hey, I know it's you kids mucking around. I know you're having a laugh. Do you know what it's like, flinching every time the phone rings? Do you know how that can ruin someone's life? And I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Duck. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mr. Duck. And he said, anyway, it's Dr. Duck, or as my friends call me, the Quack. Oh, it was a weird time. It was trendy in year 8 to have a tin of mackerel fillets in your shirt pocket. You were nobody unless you had a tin of mackerel fillets in your shirt pocket. And the teachers would always confiscate them, of course. They always looked so healthy, our teachers. Must have been all that omega-3. And the poor kids, bless them, they'd come in with these Tesco's own brand mackerel fillets. It may surprise you to know that I wasn't one of the trendy kids. This poem is called Sideburns. Those words were barbs which drew blood with each prick. The taunting, devilish grinnery of secondary school bullies, always looking for the easy target. Suburban yokels from commuter town districts whose mirth was perked because apparently I had abnormally big sideburns. Blame it on bowl-cut Suzanne, my local hairdresser, who no matter what you asked for, you came out with a bowl cut and the biggest sideburns known to man. Side is, sidey, sidey, side is, my classmates would taunt. And they had a point. I must have looked a complete wanker. Last to be picked for the football team again. No respectable side could abide side is sidling by. Sliding tackle lad, unsubtle sidey free slider, striker, sideburns on the sidelines, didn't want to play your stupid game anyway. Mother would shout at the bathroom, what are you doing up there? In front of a mirror with a trimmer and my hands all a tremor. Level up one side, level up the other, level up one side, level up the other. Oh no, there goes my left eyebrow. In the midst of playground joshing, a poetry of sorts unmatched from these pint-sized Byrons, forever complimenting me on my hairy crab pincers, my 2 tentacled octopuses, my fuzzy baboons, my bucket handles. Keep them coming, lads, keep them coming. Going upstairs on the bus home. Oh no! Suddenly wedged as my sides stick with static to the plastic of the bus company decor. Someone give me a shove. What's the hold up? It's Sideburns lad again. Someone fetch the WD-40. Sideburns, sideburns, lurking through the undergrowth. Shoot them with the blunderbuss. Blam, blam, blam. Flap, flap, flap. They were so voluminous that often they would entice the most mild-mannered man to inquire as to their structural integrity, and every now and then the offer of a fondle. Internet fetishists online asking me to lean into the camera and comb them. Go on, comb them. And you know what that is? Internet grooming. One day I was apt to declare, "Your words cannot harm me, for within there lurks a beast of peace, a man whose heart doth sing and hope for a day when people look beyond these sprouty temple protrusions. Draw your own conclusions, you slobbering band of pig-headed donkey-assed cretins." And it was at that moment the vicar halted the harvest festival. Bereft of hope, my sideburns little more than a passport to crippling self-doubt, I knocked on the door of bowl-cut Suzanne and showed her a picture of the latest trendy spiky-haired mullet. She asked me to take a seat, and she said, "One bowl-cut coming right up." So I grew up in the suburbs. If you look on a map, it looks like London has upchucked onto a green shag pile rug. We used to escape to the seaside. I loved it as a kid, and now I actually live in a seaside town. And I'm really happy here. Though it's the most eccentric place on earth. When I first arrived, I found a leaflet for the local bus company, and it said that their bus left from outside where Woolworths used to be. Where's that? I don't know. I've only just got here. This poem is my tribute to a seaside town. It's called Seaside Soul. This town is not torrid, nor tainted, nor brazen. This tornado of flavours. Chip shops and chopsticks and packets of quavers savour its layers and nautical sailors. Barbers and harbours and car parks and Mars bars. A beer at the Pier Inn while peering at the pier thing. A stride and a stroll, but hide from the gulls your hot sausage roll. It's the way that we roll with our seaside soul. High tide, drip dry, knick-knack, paddywhack, picnic and a pack-a-mac, promenade, flapjack, sand in your rucksack, sand in your flapjack, sand in your arse crack, let's go to the pub. Cinema, chick flicks, candy floss, pick and mix, fish and chips, kiss me quick, think I feel sick. Ring road, surf shack, seaweed stink, caravan holidays, worse than you think. Dodgy plumbing and a blocked up sink. Big bands and jazz hands, gleaming sands and one-night stands. You probably will not understand. This ain't no hole, it's got seaside soul. Amusements, bemusements, soup of the day. The all-day breakfast only served until midday. Have you paid and displayed? Grab your bucket and spade. Memories fade, but your heart will always stay. This frisky town, this sea-breezy town, this cream tea scene of green seas and freezing dips, donkey rides and cheesy chips, ice cream by the bowl, it's got seaside soul. Dancing like lovers on the prom in the rain, the hot pulse of life adding fire to my brain. The legs of the pier stand deep in the brine. Let's dance one more time, say you'll be mine. We grin and we laugh and we howl at the ships. The night is afire and it smells just like chips. You bend for a kiss like a child with a doll. I ask what's for dinner. You said seaside soul. My neighbour would strap 2 trays filled with cat litter to his shoes as he walked to the car, so that it sounded like he had a gravel drive. But he was happy. And I was happy too. And then something happened that really made me laugh. My aunt died. Not that her dying was funny, just that it reminded me of some of the funny things that used to happen to her. Like that time she went into a shop and she asked for 2 flagons of cider, and the shopkeeper put them on the counter and they both simultaneously exploded. The flagons of cider, that is, not my aunt and the shopkeeper. Or that time she looked after me and my sister when we were kids, and we left to go to school and she was struggling to fold away the ironing board. And when we came back from school 7 hours later, there she was still struggling to fold away the ironing board. Or that time she came out of work in a thick London pea soup fog, stood at the bus stop and saw the distinctive shape of my uncle's motorbike emerge from the mist. As a joke, she showed a bit of leg, and he stopped and he kept up the pretense by asking, "Where to, love?" And she said, "7 Pevensey Crescent, and don't spare the horses." So she got on his motorbike, and they rode through the streets of West London through the fog, and they stopped outside her house and she hopped off. And then he drove away, which she thought was kind of weird. But anyway, she opened her front door and there he was, sitting in the living room. "You're home early from work," he said. And now she's dead. Really dead. And it just makes you think, can we ever be truly happy if we know we're going to snuff it? This next poem is called Instructions for My Funeral. My friend Anne has planned her funeral. She wants bright colours, all the colours of the rainbow, beachwear and party glitter, pink feather boas and dancing, cocktails and music and laughter, because, she says, life is a chase. Why not obscure the hate? Spread joy in the moment before it's too late to expose the beauty that lies within every pristine soul. Have you ever heard such bollocks? I want sobbing at my funeral, uncontrollable sobbing, mourners dressed in black sobbing, in an austere church with such bad acoustics that all you can hear is sobbing. And I want horses at the funeral, and I want the horses to have those black tassels on their heads, and I want the horses to look sad, and I want the horses to be sobbing too, and I want dreary music. And just when it sounds like the dreary music is about to end, it starts up again, dreary music and sobbing. I want a sermon that goes on and is so incredibly pointless that not even the vicar knows what it's about. And I want the vicar to be a droner with a nasal whine, bad teeth and dandruff. And I want the vicar to talk about how meaningless life is. And I want the pews to be really uncomfortable. I want my casket to be there, of course. And I want someone to throw themselves on it and have to be dragged away. And I want some poor sucker to have to read a poem by a Bronte sister. And I want my gravestone to read, "Sleep brings no joy to me." And I want it to rain, you know, the sort of rain, that wet rain. And I want everyone at the service to get a cold, not a full-on cold, just a runny nose and a sore throat. And I want the pallbearers all to get a slip disc. And on the way home, I want the mourners to stop at a little cafe and ask for chips, but the waitress says the fryer's broken, so they order jacket potatoes. But when the jacket potatoes arrive, they're still raw in the middle, and the salad is limp. I want my death to come at a period of maximum inconvenience for everyone. Right at a time of peak happiness or before a long-anticipated holiday. I want people to have to cancel things. I'm laughing about it now. I want my death to be so miserable that it reminds people of Worcestershire. Oh my God, that's what I want. My friend Anne says she wants to put the fun back into funeral. And she's already bought a CD of S Club 7 on the off chance. But I aspire to greater things. It's just a shame I won't be around to see it. I decided it was my duty as a poet to get to the heart of the human condition and pinpoint exactly what it means to be happy. I applied to 33 different funding organisations, and 32 of them said I was obviously happy enough because I was plainly having a laugh. But one of them said yes. An organisation which specialised in placing poets on ships. They went by the name Don't Fall Overboard, and they worked in association with a similar company that did the same thing for singers. They were called Shiver Me Tombras. They said they could put me on a fish factory ship. I said, fish factory ship? They said, fish factory ship. I said, you mean a factory that makes fish? They said, no, a fish factory ship, like a trawler, only it's a ship. And by the way, have you ever gutted a haddock? I said, what's this got to do with my search for happiness? They said, imagine how happy you'll be when you get off. That night, filled with a sudden romanticism about the fishing industry, I went to Brixham and I watched the trawlers come home. This poem is called Homecoming. A lonely dot on a wide, wide sea, a nestle of rigs and beams, a mess of rust with nets slung low, giant spools and ropes slack dripping brine. The hairpin concrete bend of jutted brick breakwater, a faded dead slow lettering, a test of time, scratched and blotched this tub, sides a slap with the remnants of a seabed scoured. At night, each bunk holds dreams or high sea murmurs. As plastic Macs drip dry this metal tin of deckhand muscle, winches, graft, sweat. They earn their sea legs, these sons and daughters. A throb of diesel purrs the shuddering deck, and slantwise rain in a spotlight's glare, bow break waves and quayside forklifts. Home, home. The next morning, I was taken out on a little boat to the fish factory ship, the Morning Squid, registered in that well-known seafaring nation of Transylvania. It loomed on the horizon like a 1970s leisure centre, its steel sides reflecting a weak autumn sun. I was welcomed on board with all the pomp and ceremony of receiving a parking ticket and assigned a bunk next to the tumble dryer. That night, remembering the purpose of my visit, I went up to the bridge and found the captain as he steered us further out to sea. So I said to him, "Are you happy?" "No," he replied. That night, in the depths and bowels of this constantly chugging craft, I wrote the following poem. I'm feeling a bit queasy. This old ship slung around like that Danish weather girl on the last series of Strictly. Last night, I was sick into my left Wellington boot. And I only remembered this morning when I went to put it on. Sam is our captain. He's seen it all, has Sam. freak waves, ghost ships, an albatross with a beard. He's the finest seaman I've come across. And James is our chef. He can whip up the fluffiest meringues this side of Portland Bill. And Jim and Keith and Stinky Pete, merry mariners, saucy seafarers, not one of them's interested in bloody poetry. Last night I was so cold that my nipples went really big. And I had a strange dream that I was stroking a caterpillar. And this morning Keith said, "Gosh, my moustache feels smooth." And oh, the banter. Today I was laughingly called a barnacle-encrusted, puke-soaked, impertinent, half-witted buttock. And I replied, "Nice to hear from you too, Mum." Out on deck, hauling in a big load with Keith. "Do ships often sink?" I yelled above the clatter of the engine. "Usually," he replied, "just the once." Gutting fish with Bill. Been at it his whole life, has Bill. Looks one way, then the other. Says, "Sonny Jim, have you ever been sexily aroused by a walrus?" I told him I hadn't. And a giant octopus stole my cheese sandwich. And a sperm whale tried to mate with us. And I was winked at by a squid. And I'd never seen so many crabs. And the captain was out on deck with a jumping rope, jumping up and down. No wonder they call him the skipper. And the seas got rough. And we rose up through swell and wave, and the sky spat rain. They were ever so brave, this lonely tub on a wide, wide sea. Perhaps this was the wrong moment to tell Stinky Pete that he would make my life complete. He slapped me with a gurnard. So the crew quickly realised that I was quite useless. And they grew tired of my constant questions. What kind of fish do you catch? How do you keep them fresh? How big are the nets? Do you all just want to kill each other? What's a dorsal fin? Fins ain't what they used to be. What's a fish cake? How can fish make cakes? They haven't even got any hands. But if they haven't got hands, then where do fish fingers come from? Morrison's do 10 for about £1, the skipper replied. How do you remain so happy? I asked Bill. Me? Oh, I just get plastered. Can't do a thing without some shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka what? I asked. Shakalaka-boom. And you? I asked Keith. How do you remain happy? Me? Oh, I just drink myself senseless every night. Go back to my cabin with a few bottles of shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka what? I asked. Shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Gotta get through the day, gotta do your thing. Gotta get through the day, feel it deep within. Gotta get through the day, people, make some room. Can't do a thing without shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Go to bake a cake one day, go to bake a cake. Go to bake a cake one day. Hope I don't make a mistake. Add all the ingredients, stir them with a spoon. Add some salt and a pinch of shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Made my Broadway debut on a big Shakespeare play. I knew all the words by heart, I knew just what to say. To be or not to be, I said. And with a sense of doom, forgot what came just after that. Said shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Shakalaka-boom, boom, shakalaka-boom. Go out on a hot hot date, small talk and a chat. Go out on a hot date and then back to his flat. Making lots of small talk, hope I don't peak too soon. All he did was stroke my arm and, shaka-lacka-boom, shaka-lacka-boom, boom, shaka-lacka-boom, shaka-lacka-boom, boom, shaka-lacka-boom. Then I went to the funeral. My aunt had passed away. Such a lovely funeral on such a dismal day. I went to give the eulogy. The coffin lid went zoom. My aunt, she suddenly sat right up. Said shaka-lacka-boom, shaka-lacka-boom, boom, shaka-lacka-boom, shaka-lacka-boom, boom, shaka-lacka-boom, shaka-lacka-boom, boom, shaka-lacka-boom, shaka-lacka-boom, boom, shaka-lacka-boom, lacka-boom, lacka-boom, boom, boom. Oh, the sea. It reminded me of my ex. It was angry. It smelled of fish. God, it was rough. But I was having a good time. Call it Stockholm Syndrome or cabin fever, but the sly smiles and youthful impetuosity of Stinky Pete certainly added a fizz to the whole expedition. Indeed, he wasn't quite as pungent as he could have been, and once divested of his sou'wester, quite good looking. His bunk was decorated with magazine pin-ups and posters, including, for some reason, former Prime Minister Theresa May. Really? I asked. Any port in a storm, he replied. That night, we went up to the bridge. The control room lights in all their eerie luminescence lit by sonar shoals of fish. We were hundreds of miles from land, me, Stinky Pete, the slumbering crew and several tons of Arctic chub. He sat down and stretched out his legs and said, nothing better, he said, than hauling in a big load. Well, I'm with you on that one, I replied. He laughed, but I could tell he wasn't laughing. And then he said that just as the ship had left port, he'd received a phone message from his girlfriend, Becky. And he got out his phone and he played it to me. Hello, Stinky Pete. It's Becky here. Listen, there's something I have to tell you, but I can't do it using actual words, so I'm going to sing it. Is that okay? Anyway, here we go. I thought you were a real fun guy. We got on well, didn't have to try. But what you did just made me cry. You dunked a muffin in your carper. I know that you're a sexy hunk, but I was almost sick when I saw you dunk. Your muffin is now a sodden lump where you dunked it in your carper. I know it's petty and terribly so. You could have done much worse, I know. But I think I'll have to let you go because you dunked a muffin in your carper. It seems that all men I know are bums. The pain is intense and reality numbs. When I washed up your cup, it was full of soggy crumbs from the muffin you dunked in your carper. The standards I have are high, it's true. I wanted to spend my life with you, but what you did just made me want to spew. You dunked a muffin in your carper. Goodbye, Stinky Pete. Goodbye, farewell. You dunked A muffin in your cuppa? Is that some kind of euphemism? I asked. No, he said, I think it's an iPhone. Cheer up, laddie, the skipper said. My girlfriend Sonia broke up with me by semaphore just as we were passing Land's End. I could only reply, by Morse code. You young people have it easy. That night, around the galley table, the skipper regaled us with tall tales from a life spent on the sea. It was a squally night, said he, on a sea which heaved like the belly of a monk with trapped wind. Our lonely vessel, the unsinkable, too, was being tossed hither, as if Mother Nature were a bored teenager, and we were naught but a can of Pepsi idly thrown from hand to hand. Of a sudden, there came a crash and a splash, and the slimy, scaly, suckered limb of a giant octopus smashed through the starboard porthole and flailed around inside the bunks and sleeping quarters of the Unsinkable too. Tough trawlermen gibbered and flung themselves around as another tentacle crashed through the door and prodded and probed some more. We were doomed. A shakalaka boom boom, shakalaka boom. At that moment, our captain, brave and courageous, Steve, said, "Take off your shirts, lads, and line tight in a row, that this briny beast may fill you with its accursed tentacles, and assume it to be the teeth of its mortal enemy, the giant whale. A natural reflex will kick in, causing it to retreat back to its ocean lair." So we did as he bidded, each one of us shirtless and quivering as the tentacles slivered on our sweat-soaked chests, then watched aghast as it let out a shiver, and just as Captain Steve had said, retreated back through the door and the porthole, that we remained undefeated. And jubilant cries rang out, "Hooray!" Never before did trawlermen gibber and tremble, their eyes lit with a sudden intensity that life may so quickly be plucked from them. Of a sudden, we heard a ferocious knock on the starboard porthole, and with dread we saw the octopus there once more, and watched dumbfounded as it reached in and left behind the biggest toothbrush you've ever seen. The crew rocks with laughter and pats the skipper on the back and declares that he is a master of the tall tale, a repository of seaborne folklore, and I point out that the potent symbolism of the giant octopus as a mythological entity is a decomposition of the existentialist viewpoint, and the skipper says, "You have to ruin everything, don't you?" The days went by very quickly. I was given lots of meaningless chores like making endless cups of tea, or hosing down the chef, or keeping a lookout for icebergs because apparently a container vessel had lost a cargo of lettuce. I worked mostly with Stinky Pete. I could tell that his breakup with Becky was paining him. I wanted to help, but often, it's best just to be there for someone, to listen. I'd spent so long on my search for happiness, and yet the truth is that a lot of people aren't happy. And if I should get to the root of happiness, then I should consider this. This next poem is called Nathan. Nathan went for a walk in the rain, felt the cold drop sting thrown by the wind like thoughts flung at him. Often he felt he could disappear, given the chance. Less than a ghost scared of its own haunting, often life really was too daunting. Hands thrust in pockets, He would stand under the limbs of a tree whose skeletal branches zigzagged an overcast battleship sky. Seemed to him the jagged black lightning of negative storms, moments of joy nullified, time turned inside out. One day this tree would fall and rot. Not even a memory. Custodians of masculinity leer in with jeering grins, outstretched claws soured with the blood of souls too weak to join the cultural dance. Maps marked not with roots, but the chaos of headstrong toxicity, the violence of difference, for straying would be an error, and only a fool would sheer from the path and be rightly and soundly mocked. Nathan went for a walk in the rain. It's hard to explain the indefinable. It's easier to be a man and stamp down emotion, to be one of the lads and aspire to such. Show no fear, stick two fingers up at pain. Don't be weak, don't be spineless, and don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. And if someone does, then don't listen. For God's sake, don't admit that you're lonely. What kind of man does that? Nathan went for a walk in the rain. Saw the puddles circled with heavy drops falling like abandoned ideas or dragons' tears. No time to explain, just a walk. No time to talk, and no one to listen if he needed to talk. And anyway, what could he possibly explain? Nathan went for a walk in the rain. The next morning, I went out on deck. And I saw the sun rise. I found a tub of turbot and sat down and I wrote the following poem. It's called Sunrise. You get used to the toil, the noise, the salt-flecked waves, the aching limbs, the treacherous decks, the long hours, the constant motion, the tight space, and that feeling of having to be at one with a metal craft whose upkeep ensures your very survival. But the sunrise is different every day. Heading east into a myriad of colours, the night lightens with a halo, or maybe a red stain which bleeds ever upwards. Or else a resplendent yellow setting afire the sea itself. Or maybe through a swirling mist, the sun is a red circle rising high with mystical intent, perfectly round. Or perhaps the day would just kind of start and we'll be on the bridge and the skipper will say, "Hey, come and see this. Come and have a look." A new day reaches out its youthful hand and plucks sweet chants from the hours to come. The clock reset. The world still turns. It's like the universe is smiling. I knew it was never going to be on between me and Stinky Pete. For a start, his long limbs made his body look all angular. Sex with him would have been like my aunt trying to fold away the ironing board. And secondly, chances are that he was straight. Sure, they say that gay people are 1 in 10 in any situation, but in any situation, that 1 in 10 is me. So it's more like 1 in 20, 1 in 40, if you factor in the lesbians. As part of my residency, I gave a poetry workshop down in the fish gutting room. And there, surrounded by discarded scales and fish detritus, sweet poetry was born. Our chef, James, wrote the following. Flick the switch, the bulb goes ping, a sudden glare from deep within, An atmosphere dulled can take your stamp. Whether standard or table, you're an excellent lamp. He explained that that was just a bit of light verse. Bill wrote the following. We all get distracted and then we start to ponder. We go from concentration, but then our minds start to wander. We get distracted, as people often do. I said, is that it? He said, I didn't get round to finishing that one. And then it was Keith's turn, and he wrote this. I dug a hole 40 foot down. Hey, my friend yelled, are you near Australia yet? I kept digging and got to 60 foot, 70 foot. Are you near Australia yet? My friend yelled. I kept digging and digging. 80 foot down, I finally gave up. Again, we all clapped, and he said that poem was about as deep as he gets. But there was nothing from Stinky Pete. 30 miles from home, there's a bilge pump malfunction. I didn't grasp the severity of the problem until I realised that most of the crew are rushing around saying, oh my God, there's a bilge pump malfunction. I offered to make a tray of tea and crack open the chocolate digestives, but they said they didn't have time because there was a bilge pump malfunction and, oh my God, now the backup bilge pump has also malfunctioned. There was a noticeable list to port so severe that my guy liner rolled off the bathroom shelf. I was put to work with Stinky Pete, cranking the handle of the auxiliary pump as the crew rushed around. Me and Stinky Pete, the sweat rolling down our faces, pumping, cranking, Yet still, the morning squid listed further. Pete, I yelled, finally plucking up the courage. What? He replied, pumping, cranking. Yes, he replied, pumping, cranking. I'm in love with you, I yelled. He pumped and he cranked and he pumped and he cranked. I know, he replied, but you're choosing to tell me this now? Pumping, cranking. Kind of, I replied. Are you surprised? Pumping, cranking. Not really, he replied. For a start, I'm gorgeous. And secondly, there's 20 of us on this boat, so by the law of averages, and anyway, you know what they say, any port in a storm. Well, I must say, I said, pumping, cranking. You're being very mature about this. And I know it always comes as a surprise, seeing as I'm so manly and macho and masculine and something of a hard nut, and basically because I'm a stud. But anyway, pumping, cranking. Just thought I'd let you know. By now, the sea was lapping around our ankles. The morning squid, this huge ship threatening at any moment to slide beneath the waves like a clown putting on one of his big shoes. Oh no, Stinky Pete suddenly said. I've just remembered I've left some Pop-Tarts on in the toaster. But it was too late. Do something, the skipper yelled. So I tweeted, as if the day can't get any worse. I'm on a sinking ship, LOL. And it was liked by a suspiciously large number of followers. The skipper was just about to give the order to abandon ship when we heard a noise. A boom. A boom, wada boom. A boom, wada boom, wada boom. A boom, boom, wada wada boom, boom, wada wada boom, boom, wada wada boom, boom, boom. As if by magic, through the mist, in all its camp glory appeared the local gay pride party boat, This glitter-littered, tinsel-covered pleasure craft filled with dancers, merrymakers, drag artistes, bitter old queens, big butch bears, slippery striptease dancers, erotic club bunnies and bastions of camp. And oh, it felt like home. "You in trouble, boys?" the captain, fabulous Frida, yelled from beneath her oversized sequin captain's hat. "Hop on board." So gratefully we did. Me and Stinky Pete, Bill and Keith, the skipper, Jim and James and the rest of the crew, so incredibly relieved and indescribably happy. And wouldn't you know, Becky was there. Stinky Pete's Becky, working behind the bar. She stepped forward and flung her arms around him. "Come on, you," she said. "I'll make you a cup of tea." "Got any muffins?" he asked. "Don't you bloody dare," she replied. So was this it? Was this the happiness I'd been seeking? Was this the lesson learned thanks to those good people that don't fall overboard? Would I see Brandon, a smile on his face, weaving between the dancers towards me with a bottle of shaka-laka-boom? Or does everyone have their own conception of what happiness is? For Stinky Pete, happiness was being loved. For Bill and Keith, happiness could only be found in a substance which took the edge off their world. For Becky, happiness was contentment. For the skipper, happiness was being part of a tradition. And for all of us, at that moment, happiness was just relief at being alive. But what about me? Happiness. Happiness was having an identity and embracing it. Happiness was belonging to a community. Happiness was knowing who I am. Happiness was being off that damn boat. So I've just got one more poem to do, and it's called Be Yourself. For many years, I didn't know. I had to guess. Time moved so slow, this aching that I felt from deep within. But only now in retrospect, the truth is out, I do suspect. I really don't know where I should begin. I feel so great. I feel so free. If someone stole my identity, they'd probably take one look and give it back. Be yourself. Be who you are. Your obvious truth. You've come so far to show the world the things that it has lacked. There is no pain. There is no doubt. I know my place and my place is out. It's really not an issue anymore. If life's a drag, then drag along and strut your stuff and sing a song and give it large and dance on life's dance floor. Embrace yourself. Do so with glee. Approach each day so merrily, and don't let anything negative get in your way. Be yourself, not someone other. Don't hide away there under cover. And when you do, just smile and then say, "Yay!" Thank you very much.